Alright, so I said I wasn't going to do another Undead Chronic video, but I kind of got to now because a couple other things were exposed to me from somebody who made a comment, and then also I found this video that I didn't really watch all the way through. This is Alex from Playing with Fire, who, I've been following Pua for like 10 years now, maybe longer. And Alex came in around 2016, 2017, and I had my issues with him. I used to follow him on Facebook, and he would post lay reports of like girls who were like 5 out of 10s, and then like act like he was some big guy. So I've had some qualms with Alex, and then also J-Mulv, but now I kind of feel sorry for Undead Chronic. Somebody tipped me off to one of his videos where he said that he's got a blood disease or something, and it's just like, for a while I didn't really understand. I guess maybe I didn't pay attention to him that much, or I just thought he was funny, but I didn't really delve into his character. But it wasn't until the J-Mulv roast or the J-Mulv expose that I really started to question Undead Chronic's consistency, or his authenticity, if you will. And then now I'm starting to realize that he's kind of just a dude who just LARPs on the internet, and he's kind of just a dude who like insults everything on the internet, and it's pretty low behavior, it's pretty weak behavior. But I didn't see this. I wanted to basically say the same thing, so this actually answered my question. Like I said, if you've been following at all my interaction with Undead Chronic, he keeps asking me to, well, when we get into our little discussions or whatever in the comments, he keeps telling me to call in and then call myself a hater or whatever, label myself as a hater. And then he claims, quote unquote, that he didn't recognize me last Friday or whatever because I didn't put hater on or something. And yeah, I'm not hating on you, Undead Chronic. Like, I'm calling you out. There's a difference, and I'm not gonna put that on. Like he's asking me to be a bitch so he can roast me, and it's just like, dude, what are you, 14? Like, no, I'm not gonna do that. You are running from me. You won't answer a basic question in the comment section, and you want me to get on your show so that you can make money off of it, and you're not even putting me on the show when I call in. So it's like, nah, man, I'm not gonna waste my time. But I wanted to make this video because Alex basically, God bless him, I've had my qualms with him, but he basically asked my questions precisely, and I never noticed this before because I didn't watch this whole video. I think I watched some of it, but he's asking Undead Chronic basically the same questions that I was going to ask him on his show. So it's like, fuck it, why don't I just, because Undead Chronic is going to answer, and he basically is just like this comment says here, he moves the goalposts when he's called out, and he strawmans constantly. So basically when somebody calls him out, he runs and makes excuses or changes the subject or says this or says that, and it's pretty clear right here what he's doing. So I'm just going to play this and kind of break it down and really show you guys what you're following. If you're following Undead Chronic, this is what he's inconsistent, he's not genuine, and really he does kind of come across as a guy who's bitter because he's been rejected a lot in his life, which can happen in the red pill, which is called red pill rage and all that. And there's a difference between exposing female nature, there's a difference between calling out bad female behavior in our modern society. There's a difference between calling out simps and calling out blue pill white knights and calling out radical feminists, etc., which is all necessary in the red pill. There's a difference between that and then like portraying yourself as this alpha Chad guy who's just mad because there's no virgins, and you smoke weed, which raises estrogen, but also you're in the gym, so you're a buff guy and all this shit. And it's just like, he's created a persona around himself to make money, and it's like, oh, it took me a while to get it, and now I'm like, oh, now I see what you're doing. Oh, okay, this is all about the money with you. This is why you won't answer my question in the chat. This is why you want me to come on your show so you can make more money. So, and it's like, I think that's what Tom Likas did. I've mentioned this before with regards to Chronic. It seems like he just took Tom Likas's formula and tried to recreated on YouTube, and it's one of those things where you're like, damn, there's really a lot of fools out there. You know, there's a lot of people who really can't see the forest through the trees, particularly when it comes to like somebody like J-Molv, and it's like, it's bizarre. And I've made videos like on J-Molv before, where it's so bizarre how I'll go on his channel and I'll see like all these guys complimenting him and like following him and like basically riding his jock, when all he really did was create a persona on YouTube without any proof that backed it up. And he created a program, a dating program, which he stole from like other content creators, other PUA content creators. That's all he did, and he created this persona, and that's all he needed. He didn't need actual proof of any lay counts, of any polls. He didn't need any actual proof. All he showed ever was infield videos of him chatting girls up, which apparently is enough to facilitate and propel the lie that he's got a 1,400 lay count, which is insane to me. So I look at it like a almost like a social science experiment or something. I look at this guy like a psychology breakdown, and I'm like, dang, people really buy that shit. People really follow that. And so now I'm starting to look at Chronic in the same way, and I'm like, oh, okay, dude, this is just a persona. You're just there to make money. And it's like, okay, maybe you're really upset about women. Maybe what some of what you're saying is genuinely coming from your heart, but at the same time, like, you can tell his shit is not straight up and down because of the hypocrisy. Now, I think my gut tells me that Undead Chronic is a dude who doesn't go out much. My gut tells me he's a guy who doesn't get laid that much. My gut tells me that he's kind of one of these guys who talks a big game to overcompensate for his own ineptitude, which is not anything close to being an alpha, which is what he portrays himself as online. I don't care if he doesn't show his face. I don't care if he's not genuine in that way, but what I care about is like his message and his behavior is consistent, and it's not. So his message is that he wants a virgin, and it's like, what I don't like is guys coming into the red pill, and I wouldn't necessarily call him a fraud per se, but I would say that he's giving a conflicting message. He's giving a message that is conflicting to red pill guys. So anyway, I wanted to break down what he says here, and the reason why that's a problem with me is because it's like, in the red pill, we want to have a good rapport with the rest of the world. We want to have we don't need to give them any more fuel for the fire against red pill guys. And him being inconsistent, him being a hypocrite, him being arrogant, Undead Chronic being not anything that he himself has claimed that women should be, which is moral, pure. But the thing is, I don't even think he is getting laid like he says he is. I doubt it. He has an 80 lay count. I doubt it. Maybe you got a 5 lay count if you're lucky. Just the way he talks, guys who are really banging a lot of women, like 80 women before he's 25, like, you're not going to be on the internet all day long, all week. You don't got time for that. You're spinning plates, you're texting girls, you're going on dates, you're going out and you're cold approaching. You just don't have time. Particularly, he said he had a full-time job. I listened to his video where he says the truth about Undead Chronic. So he had a full-time job before he got his blood disease or whatever, his sickness or whatever he said. He didn't even mention what it was called, but doesn't matter, neither here nor there. Okay, he got a sickness and he had to stop working. So you were working full-time and making all these videos. I don't think you have time to be banging 80 girls by the time you're 25. And 80 is not a huge number, but you got to understand that for every one lay you get, you're probably approaching 500 to 1,000 girls. You got to deal with all the flakes. You got to deal with the rejection, which sucks. You got to deal with girls playing games with you. You got to deal with this, with that. It's not easy, man. It's time consuming. I just don't believe it, but that's neither here nor there. With regards to this video, let's play it, because it basically just answers my questions that I was going to ask him on a show anyways. And since he's playing games with me about coming on his show, he's ducking me. He's running because he knows I got his number. He basically gets called out here, and then this is probably all he was going to do on his show anyway if I called in and asked these same questions. So I got to give Alex props. He did a good job on this. So let's press play and basically jump into this.
top of my grave. Laser that thing in. Your lies, John Anthony lifestyle. I slept with 2,000 women. Is that not something you...
What's hilarious is that Alex's facial expressions are like this the whole video. He's just like trying to figure this guy out. He's trying to because Undead Chronic, what he does is he uses imbalanced measures. He judges and he has standards on the pool of guys that he himself doesn't follow. So he's like a quagmire. He's like, and this is why I call him a hypocrite, because he's just like, he's saying one thing 1 minute and then the next minute he's saying the exact opposite. Like, he doesn't know where his lies start and where his story ends, and it's funny. It's really funny. So Alex has this quizzical, confused expression throughout this entire video.
Be ashamed of? Like, that's it.
You're looking through the lens of your values. For example, through the lens of my values, I would say, one of the big things I value is respect. And you were quite disrespectful to Liz. So according to my values, like,
you wouldn't want to sound like me. I get that. You wouldn't want to.
Undead Chronic is disrespectful to everyone. He's constantly disrespectful, which is why probably nobody wants him on their show. Which is why Richard Cooper and Rollo Tomasi, I'm sure that Undead Chronic has been sending them messages and DMs and, oh, have me on your show, so he could get more followers. Because Undead Chronic is just in it for the YouTube money, period. Right? So I'm sure that he has done that. So it's like, yeah, you're not respectful at all. No wonder nobody wants to talk to you.
You wouldn't want a man. You wouldn't want a man that dares to hold women accountable to his.
Yeah, and so it's so obvious. He's got this. He's always talking about these values and morals, and yet he himself is just the most disrespectful, vulgar, vile, cursing person. And it's just like, dude, what are you talking about? You're a straight up hypocrite in every possible way.
I get that. I wouldn't want a man who spends his whole life chasing low quality puniti.
Right, then that's fine according to your values, but I wouldn't then hold you to my values. That's the thing. I'm not going to hold you to my values.
I mean, I'll hold you guys to my values because you're exposing young, vulnerable men to this kind of toxic ideology.
And what are you doing, Undead Chronic? You got a whole army. Apparently a whole army. I don't know how many people actually follow you, but you claim it's a whole army, the war band or whatever you call them, of guys who follow you and give you money and basically ride your jock, and yet you're a hypocrite. It's just like, hello, why are you guys giving this guy money? Why, he doesn't even practice what he preaches. He claims he wants a virgin who's pure, and yet he's claiming he's going out on the weekends and banging low value women. It just doesn't make sense, man.
But the initial question was, why is it shameful for a man to want to improve his success with women? Why is that a bad thing? What's so wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong paying dudes whose entire goal is sexual degeneracy with that. Like, you don't need to pay for these courses to improve your success with women. And it's also like, what is success with women? Is success with women getting a wife? Trying to find a virgin? They probably want to go on my channel. If the success with women is, I want to be known as the pussy genocide crew of Vegas, they should probably, I don't know. I guess they should buy a couple pickup artists. That sounds dirty to say, but yeah, if that's their whole life, yeah, they probably want to, even if it doesn't work, they want to see the information.
Most guys' goal is to get laid. They want to meet chicks and they want to ultimately get into a relationship, whether it's a short-term relationship or a long-term relationship. That's what 95% of guys want.
Now, if you think 95% of guys, is your goal to get laid or have a family? What do you think they choose?
You sort of need to get laid in order to have a family. You can't have a family without getting laid.
That's an interesting question, and I would say you would get a lot of different answers, because I think a lot of different guys want different things. I think that maybe it depends on their age. It depends on what they wanted. Now, I can only speak for myself. There was a time when I really wanted to have love and get married, and that was before I realized that, I didn't understand female nature at all. That was back in my blue pill days, and I really wanted love. I was horny too, but I wanted love, and I've always viewed love as different than just hooking up and getting sex, and I think most guys do too. To conflate the two is not really genuine. I think Alex is basically trying to make the case here that a lot of guys buy his courses because they're looking for love, which is fine too. That's a decent point. Like, guys do need social skills in order to meet the right quality women, which is why I always say that PUA is not bad in and of itself. The only reason I take shots at somebody like Alex or J-Wolf is because I don't believe, I somewhat agree with Chronic, is, in that, insofar as you don't really need to buy their courses to learn pickup and to learn how to be be social and create better social skills. There's free videos out there you can learn. There's ways to get around it. And also I've got both of their programs. I've got J-Mill's program, it's called Occam's Razor. I've got Alex's program, it's called Playing with Fire. I didn't pay for them, don't ask me how I got them, somebody gave them to me, is what it is. But I've delved into both of them on a shallow level. I haven't read through everything, but I get what their courses are about. It's about information, which is fine. But I don't believe the information that they're selling in these courses is authentically theirs. I think that they've taken that information from other courses and basically just rehashed it into their own course to make money, which is just a basic fraudulent grift or whatever you want to call it. It's just business. It is what it is. I'm not mad. I'm not upset at that. But that's why I don't believe these guys are genuine. But the bottom line, basic, Alex is right in that in order to meet a woman, you need to improve your social skills. You need to improve your game. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that a lot of red pill guys are stuck in this because of their red pill rage and because of their bad experiences with women. They become turned off to women as a whole, which is understandable. I get that when you get hurt by women or when you get cheated on or divorced or screwed over, and these women out here can be vicious, and that's why the red pill is also necessary, right? So I never say that the red pill or PUA is good or pardon me. I never say that the red pill or PUA, either one of them is not necessary. They're both good and they're both important to equip men with the necessary skills to grow and to equip themselves, to defend themselves, to shield themselves, particularly with the red pill. And the funny thing is there's a lot of info and a lot of tenets and science in each respective group, PUA or red pill, that overlap and that complement each other. And a lot of them, they basically are just saying the same thing, right? When we're talking about female nature, a lot of PUA really takes from red pill and a lot of red pill takes from PUA. And so the problem is they're not the same. They're not the same thing. It's like the red pill is the truth about female behavior. The red pill is the truth about how men are treated. It's the truth about society. It's the truth about money. It's the truth about government. It's just the truth. What you decide to do with that is up to you. A lot of guys are stuck in red pill rage or their red pill phase. Their red pill rage phase, and they don't even know it, right? And that's why they might succumb to somebody like Undead Chronic, who's out here like a anglerfish with his little shiny light. Oh, I'm Undead Chronic. I'm your savior. I'm the legendary warband leader who's going to give you confidence in yourself. And I'm just gonna, he props himself up as this hero, when in reality he's a guy who hasn't graduated from his own red pill rage, and he's just making money off it, or he has graduated and he's just playing up the persona because he wants to make money. So a lot of guys are stuck in that kind of hole of hating women, and it's like, it's one thing to have the information on the red pill. It's one thing to understand female nature. It's one thing to be privy and be aware of how women behave, the kind of red flags to look for that in women. That's one thing. It's another thing to be stuck in your hatred for them and you'll see that, and it's like, this is why these guys get called out and they get called incels and this, that, and the third, is because it's like, yeah, you need, it's good, it's fine to be red pilled. Like, I'm not saying the red pill is great. I'm a red pill guy. I hype up and pump the red pill, but you have to have some limits, insofar as you can't just be consumed by that. You can't, that can't just be all day every day who you are. You have to learn some realities about life. The realities are that, yeah, women are hypergamous. That is a red pill, but it's also a reality about life. So what are you going to do with it, right? Are you just going to be like Chronic and just constantly diss them and insult them and be disrespectful? You know what I mean? And it's like, it's fine. Sometimes you do it, and sometimes you just want to, like, have a cathartic experience where you're just talking some crap and you just want to express, how hurt you are or whatever, and you can say some truths that way. I mean, there's a way to do that without insulting and being disrespectful and cursing and all this stuff. Or even if you do, it's like, but are you staying there all day, every day? Are you staying in that anger all day, every day? Or are you moving on with your life? It's like, yeah, part of Pua is like recognizing and realizing that, yes, life is harsh. Women are out here rejecting men for various reasons, and you need to improve yourself so you can not be rejected, or improve yourself so that you can be above the whole concept of a woman being above you, because she's rejecting you or whatever. Like, you don't have to go out there and, like, it's, so what if you get rejected? It doesn't mean the woman is better than you. Like, you gotta, that's where the red pill comes in, where it's like, yeah, well, you know what, okay, I got rejected, but you know what, like, she's probably a 304 and she's probably banging a bunch of dudes, she probably has an STD, she's probably had abortions. Like, that helps you get through the rejection. That help, that reality of, so reality can actually help a guy. But if you're just staying in this cocoon, in this cave, in this shell where you're like, oh, all women are bad and I'm not going to go out, I'm not going to venture out and improve myself. Like, I'm not saying you should do anything. I'm not suggesting anything. All I'm saying is that the red pill doesn't necessarily mean you have to be stunted. The red pill doesn't necessarily mean that you have to just sit back and let women win, right? So, you know what I mean? It's to just sit back and diss the red pill and be like, no, I'm a Pua guy, I diss the red pill, they're all incels. Or to be a red pill guy and sit back and diss Pua and be like, oh no, I'm only red pilled, anybody who chases women is a fool. And it's like, neither is correct. Like, both of them, to be a good quality man, we need women. Sorry to say, like, women make us happy. There's nothing that can make you feel confident like a woman. There's nothing that can make you feel happy and deeply, you feel, when a woman, and only a woman can do this. When she builds you up, or she gives you compliments, or she, just even being physical with a woman, it just makes you feel like a king. So. I believe that whether it's nature or God or biology or whatever, I believe that it's supposed to be like that. I believe that's natural and that's normal. The problem is, a lot of times, a lot of these women out here are very toxic and they're very abrasive, and radical feminism, modern feminism, has caused them to hate men on a subconscious level, or a latent, nature is, level where it's caused them to try to rule over men and put men down, and this, that, and the third. And so a lot of men, they don't get that, and they don't know what that feels like to be complimented by a woman, or to make love to a woman, and how good it makes you feel. And so they become bitter, and their instinct says, I should be receiving this love. Their instinct says, I should be receiving this sexual feedback from women, but I'm not. And so it's the woman's fault. And it's like, maybe it's somewhat the woman's fault, but maybe it's also somewhat your fault, because you need to improve. You need to improve your social skills, or you need to improve your outer game. You need to improve your inner game. You need to go to the gym. You need to do these things. There's no one size fits all answer, which is, I heard Chronic, when he was talking to J-Mole, he was like, oh, just go to the gym and get buff. That's not necessarily all that it takes. What about your shoe game? What about improving how you dress? What about wearing clothes that actually fit you better? What about spending more money on nicer clothes? What about, growing your hair to a certain length and styling it? What about the way you use your posture? What about how your eye contact? What about your presence? What about your inner game? These are all things that Pua addresses to help men improve, you see. So it's not one size fits all either way, right? It's not fully Pua, it's not fully red pill. Like, you need the red pill to learn and check out the red flags of bad behavior of women. You need the red pill to become educated on what's out there that could harm you as a man. But on the other hand, you might need pua because no one taught you how to have charisma. No one taught you how to really have confidence around a woman. No one taught you how to carry yourself, right? So it's, again, it's neither one way or the other. Let's go on.
Well, that's completely different than I just want to go out and get laid and meet chicks.
Right. For most people, it starts with like.
And as far as like a long-term relationship is concerned, like, you can do whatever you want. Like, you don't, and again, a lot of, there would be like 30% guys who would want to just get laid. And then there would be like 30% guys who just want marriage. And then there would be like 30% guys who want neither, and they just want to be monk mode or whatever. Probably a less percentage than that, on that one. And then there'd be a lot of guys who are just undecided, like, well, I kind of want to get laid, but if I had a long-term relationship, I'd take that too. And then there's guys who'd be like, I just want a girlfriend. I don't necessarily want to go out and sleep around, but I just want a girlfriend. I don't necessarily want to get married either. I just want to date one girl at a time for a couple years, and then maybe date another girl. So there'd be a lot of different answers. So there's really no one way, right? But I do think that it's not fully one way or the other. I do think that men do want marriage eventually. I think it's very similar to women. I think that men and women are very similar, in that case. The only difference is that women have unlimited access to the opposite sex, on the sexual market or the relationship market, and it actually warps them, and it distorts them and messes up their ego and all kinds of stuff, and I talk about that on my show. But at the end of the day, I think that people want different things, and we all kind of want love. We all kind of want positive feedback, and many of us do or did want marriage back in our blue pill days. And then when we learned about how bad marriage was, thankfully through the red pill, now I bet a lot of people don't want to get married. And I'm not disagreeing with Chronic in that he's saying, yes, if a woman sleeps around, and if she's not a virgin, and she sleeps around a lot, there's more probability of divorce. I'm not disagreeing with that. But again, divorce, bottom line, is still 50%. So 50% of marriages are successful, at least past, I think, the first 10 years. I don't know if that number dips down at 20 years. I mean, statistics are hard to figure out, long term. Maybe you could Google it, but I don't know if that 50% dips down to 30% after 20 years or 30 years. I don't know. But at least we know it's 50% of marriages don't work out. So there are marriages that are working out, and I think most women these days are sleeping around before they find their long-term marriage partner. So you can't just be like, oh well, the jury, the jury's out, or the ducks are come home to roost, or whatever the hell saying you want to say, as far as if she's not a virgin, then you're totally going to get a divorce. That's not true either. So I don't think Undead Chronic is right, in his point there. But again, he's just moving the goalposts. He's deflecting. He's straw manning, and this is what he does. And so let's just go on.
Hey, like you go out and you hook up with girls, and then you find a girl that you like, and then you settle down with her. Maybe you don't.
Yeah. And then if she's a non-virgin, you flip a coin and you get laid by the family court judge.
Right, but either way, you're taking a risk. Like you mentioned that the odds were smaller, but they're still 15%. So either way, you take a risk.
Well, it's like,
I'm not a big fan of marriage, honestly. This is why.
Well, it's like if.
So I kind of agree with both of them. They're like, yeah, maybe you don't want to get married because it's not a good proposition for men in today's day and age. But he's right too, that how are you going to find a woman that you want to be with if you don't ever go out and you don't ever talk to women, which is why you would need Pua's social skills. So to me, Chronic is deflecting, and Chronic knows that that's true. He's just, if he admits that that's true, then he kind of loses the argument, because his whole argument is that Pua is for losers and you don't need Pua and da-da-da-da. Deep down, he knows that guys need to go out and talk to women. Guys have the burden of talking to women. So Pua is necessary, and they're both kind of right. It's just that Chronic is being disingenuous here in that he's not admitting that, yeah, in order to find a decent girl, you're still going to have to go out and talk to him. So it's just like he's deflecting, which is what he always does.
If I had 2 guns and I gave it to you and I said point it to your left nut and shoot, one has 1 bullet in it and one has 3, you're going to choose the one with 1 bullet, right? So there's still a chance, but it's about risk reduction. That's why it doesn't, I think John's.
So then just don't get married. Then just don't cohabit. Just date. There's ways around it, and he could say the way around it, but he doesn't want to kill his whole position because he knows who his audience is. I mean, I'm not saying Undead Chronic is stupid. It's just that his hypocrisy is obvious. Really, if anything, his audience is kind of naive in that, you know, he's really just speaking to bitter guys, and he's getting money from bitter guys. So he's really no different than J-Molv. He's really not. Undead Chronic is no different than J-Molv. J-Molv is just making money off of desperate men who want to get laid. Chronic is making money off of bitter guys who are angry at women. It's just that simple.
Start rubbering up. Risk reduction.
I get all that. I just don't. If the guy's not looking to have a family, I just don't see the need to shame them for wanting to hook up with chicks.
Oh man, I shame them because
this is where it gets interesting. He says, you know, I don't see why you want to be shamed if you're trying to hook up for chicks. Now this is where it gets really good. Let's listen to Chronic's answer.
the guys that listen to me want strong families, and we look at the horn dogs out here again with low quality puniti. They're like, they're stamping that syphilis, the chlamydia card 4 times.
Not necessarily, man. I wouldn't venture to say all your guys want family. Now, I would say yes, there's a lot of guys on the red pill who do want family, and yes, that's including myself. Or at one point I did, and it is bitter, and it's a bitter. I think that's one of the hardest red pills to swallow is that, men can't. It's not safe for men to have families anymore. I get that. I figured out that I don't want kids, and I'll admit that. But at a time, I think I used to when I was younger, and I was undecided until I ran, and I wanted to find. I genuinely wanted to find love, until I ran into what I would later describe as female hypergamy and female choosing process, and all the stuff that I talk about on my channel. That's what I learned from trying to find a woman to love me. Trying to find that concept of true love, trying to find my other half, etc., and I learned all the negative stuff even before the red pill stuff really came along. So I went through all this stuff in my life, and then when firsthand experience with dating women and trying to find love, and trying to find women in church, outside of church, everywhere. So I've been down every alley. I've had every experience, more than you would even know, more than I'll even talk about on my channel, because there's a lot of things that I can't even talk about, because it's like they're so just crazy, and it's just like, I've talked about most everything, but anyway, I don't want to go into too deep a detail on my life, but the point is I've been down every single road, pretty much almost every single road you can think of. I've never been married, though, I will say that, thankfully, but I've and that's good, because it's like we need to learn what to avoid, and so that's why I generally on my show say don't get married. And so, but I'm not gonna sit around and be bitter about it like Chronic and his followers. It's like, it is what it is, man. It's messed up, but and I think that it probably helps me that I don't want kids, because if you really want kids, then you really feel like, and I to be honest, I don't know what that feels like. As a man, I don't have that drive and deep desire to have kids, and so I can't necessarily comment too much on that, but I can hypothetically understand what that means, how these guys feel, where they're like, yeah, I really want kids, but these women out here are so warped. But at the same time, I do feel like you can find somebody who's good, you can find somebody who's decent. I don't think it's out of the question. I think a lot of the problem, and particularly why red pill guys, particularly even MGTOW guys, get dissed so much and insulted so much by mainstream society, is because they kind of somewhat do, and I'll admit this, they kind of somewhat do sulk in their problems, and they stay in their problems. It's like, okay, like, yeah, well, keep trying. Like, do you just quit after every, say you apply at 100 jobs and you don't get hired for any of them? Like, keep going, man. There's a lot more than 100 jobs out there. You might find that the 104th job is the best job for you, and the one you just find so much happiness in. You know what I mean? That's the thing about life, is you got to keep trying. You can't just sit around and be bitter. And there's a time and place for that. I understand that. But anyway, let's just go on.
4 times a lifetime, and that's pathetic to us. So yeah, I'll shame him, because it's funny. It's entertainment to laugh at dudes like John. He's drunk at an IHOP. He's grinding on a homeless dude. Is that not hilarious? I mean, to me and the guys somewhat closer to me, that's hilarious.
So this is where Chronic kind of shows his low character, and you know, it's immaturity, and he's only 25, and he's bitter and he's upset, and I get where he's coming from. Where like somebody like J Wolf, who claims he's this guru, and he's obviously a total fraud, and he claims he's this Casanova. He posits himself as if he's this, you know, in his posture, you know, like he's this Mac Daddy of all Mac Daddies, when the whole thing is fake. Yeah, that's kind of funny. I get it, but at the same time, like, that it's not just J Wolf Chronic, it's your whole channel, and it's your whole persona. You constantly bash. That's your whole draw. That's your whole gimmick. You bash everything and everybody. In every video you're bashing. It's your character. It's your persona. So there's a difference between like laughing occasionally at somebody like J Wolf, who kind of gets exposed or whatever, to being like, that's your whole deal. Like, that's your whole deal, Chronic. So like, you know, that's your low character.
So your argument is that it's okay to shame because it's hilarious? I mean, I could shame. I could literally go after.
Hey, you guys.
We have a bunch of religious weirdos who want to have a bunch of virgins and are living in a fantasy world, right?
That's not a fantasy world. They exist. They just don't pay attention to you guys.
That was a good point by Alex. You know, I could just make fun of you too, right? So what's the difference? You know, are you any better than us for making fun of things?
No, they're extremely rare. I mean, you kind of admitted that, right?
Well, in the U.S.
Another great point. Chronic is always going on about virgins, but he himself admits that virgins are rare. So it's silly. After a while, you realize, oh, this guy's just complaining to complain. He's just complaining to make money. Like, he knows the answers to his own issues. He's just repeating the same talking points because he's making money on YouTube.
Yes.
Right, but you live in the U.S., I assume. I live in the U.S. All our audience mostly is in the U.S. Our fan base is largely in the U.S. We're not preaching to like Saudi Arabia, right?
I mean, I think half of my people are in the U.S., half are abroad. I think I think if you just check your YouTube channel, man, I think you'd have a lot more non-U.S. listeners than you'd expect.
Right, but even when they're non-U.S., they're Canada or they're Western Europe, which is going to have the same exact issues, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like I understand the kind of places you're talking about.
It's a step ladder, right? I would say it's a step ladder. It's, you know, some places, you know, it's if you double the virgins in the U.S. compared to, let's see here, I think what's the most decent Western European country? I don't know. Let's just make a guess. The super Catholics in Spain. Oh, we went from 0.1% to 0.2%. You're still.
So this is kind of where Chronic succeeds, in that he drifts off into tangents, and that's where he gets you. And like, Alex didn't do a very good job of sticking him to the point, which is that, hey, you're being a hypocrite. Like, you're claiming you want a virgin, but in reality there really are no virgins, and you know that, and yet you're still sticking to that. And also you yourself admit that you go out and you bang girls, even though I bet he doesn't. He claims he does. But either way, it makes him a hypocrite. It makes him inconsistent. It makes his character flimsy and flip-floppy, right? But Alex doesn't do a good job of holding him under the light. He lets him trail off into his tangent, and this is where Undead Chronic is good at deflecting and distracting.
Doubling it is still very rare, but you know, I don't want to get too religious, but a virtuous wife is worth her weight in rubies. So,
which is hilarious. So how are you gonna quote the Bible? And like, you know, hey man, if you don't follow it, at least you can be like, yeah, I don't follow it, and just admit that you don't come up to your own standard. And this is my particular problem with Undead Chronic is the hypocrisy when he quotes the Bible. So let's hear what he says.
Even you go out to religions, they are extremely valuable and rare. It's been talked about since the religion started, since it was written down in the text.
The thing is too, though, like, I don't think the Bible actually says that virgins are valuable necessarily. The Bible does, and believe me, I'm somebody who has read a lot of the Bible because I'm a Christian. I've been deeply entrenched in the Bible, and people who expound the Bible, I've read a lot of their work, so I know the Bible. The Bible does put merit on virginity, and it does sort of, and it does, you know, puts. I don't know if it really puts how much. It doesn't emphasize the value of virginity, but it does say that it's good to be a virgin, or at least it gives that impression. but it doesn't, there's really no hard and fast verse that says that for a female to be a virgin, or even for a male to be a virgin for that matter. And a lot of times people might quote it out of context, and it might say virgin in a metaphorical way. It might not really necessarily mean virgin, but I don't know if I really want to get deep into a Bible or theological talk here, but the Bible does say don't fornicate. The Bible does say that fornication is a gross sin. The Bible does say that marriage is, one of the purposes of marriage is to prevent fornication. So you could say that indirectly the Bible really hypes up virginity indirectly in a way, but really what the Bible does is just say, hey man, if you're, particularly in 1 Corinthians, Paul talks about how he says, if you're burning with desire, you're horny basically, and you're lusting after women, you need to figure out a way to quell those feelings, to pour water on that fire of horniness, so to speak, and get married. And this is the argument for marriage, particularly in the book of 1 Corinthians. But really the whole Bible is congruent in that it's consistent, and it's always hyped up marriage as a way to prevent fornication, as a way to prevent immorality. And I talk about the Bible a lot on my channel, and the Bible is very red pill. The Bible is the original red pill manuscript, if you will. Paul the Apostle was MGTOW, for instance. At least he was married at one point, but then when he followed Jesus, I think his marriage dissolved. And anyway, because Paul was a Pharisee who was a religious Jew, and I think you can't become a Pharisee unless you're actually married. So anyway, but the point is that when he was persecuting Jesus in the book of Acts, Jesus' followers, and then he had this conversion experience where a great light flashed and he fell off his horse or whatever, and he became a Christian. I think that his marriage dissolved during that time, and he became single. And he particularly says in the book of 1 Corinthians, I wish all men to be like me, single, so that they can particularly pursue God in a devout way. Whereas if and you can go read 1 Corinthians, it says this, I'm not making this up, this is all right there in the Bible. He says if you have a wife, it will distract you away from God, and you'll be concerned about the things of the world, the elements of the world, etc., etc. So the Bible is very pro-marriage. I wouldn't necessarily say the Bible is like insanely pro-virginity per se, because God knows that people are going to sleep around. And even in Genesis, the book of Genesis, because it was Eve who ate the apple, which is the reason why Paul says women shouldn't teach in the church, his reasoning. If you go and read that, I can't remember what epistle that was. The epistles are the books that Paul wrote, which are put in the New Testament, Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Philippians, Colossians, Galatians, etc., right? Ephesians, blah, blah, right? These are called epistles, but they're also books in the Bible. So, Paul's reasoning behind why a woman shouldn't teach, I forget what book and verse it is, but the reason why his reasoning why women shouldn't teach in the context of the church is because of Eve. Eve was tempted and not Adam, and that's what happens at the very beginning of the book of Genesis, is that Eve was tempted, and subsequently Eve brought Adam into her temptation, and that's how the devil got Adam and Eve, was he went to the woman first. So there's a principle there, and it's the same principle that goes on today, which is that Satan goes to the women first to corrupt the men, and subsequently corrupt society and damage what God is trying to do with families, etc., which is why the red pill and knowledge is so important, which is why chastity and monogamy and purity and morality is so important, because it does damage society, right? But with all that said, virginity, it's like really what God wants is marriage. So if a person fornicates or sleeps around a little bit, whatever. There's definitely a difference between having 3 or 4 sexual partners before you get married. There's a difference between that and having like 150, right? There is a difference. And I would say that, yes, there's lots of damage there. And anyway, that's a whole nother video, but I've talked about that. That's obvious, right? And that's true. And so the Bible says, in order to safeguard against the negative things, the damage and the things that come from fornicating and sleeping around and lust and immorality, is to get married. So really, the Bible is not necessarily, it's definitely pro-virginity, but it doesn't put virginity on a pedestal as much as it just says get married, right? The Bible is not about particularly just about marriage and love or monogamy or fidelity, or it mentions those things, but really the Bible is about following God, and the best way to follow God is to be pure and to not sleep around and not be immoral, etc. The Bible's big on righteousness. The Bible's more on righteousness than it is on like marriage per se, but marriage is a byproduct of righteousness. If you want to be righteous, you shouldn't sleep around and you should get married. So it really, if anything, hypes up marriage as a safeguard to purity more so than it does virginity. So really, Chronic is talking about things he doesn't know that much about. He's talking about things that he has a very low understanding of what he's actually talking about.
Is it okay? I don't want to take this too off track, but isn't like a whole big thing with religion, do unto others as you would want done unto yourself? I mean, I'm assuming you're Christian.
Which is a great point. He's making the point that like Chronic is basically just a hypocrite. He's pointing the finger. He's bashing people. He's not acting like a Christian, which is true. Christians are supposed to pray for people. Christians are supposed to, bless people who persecute them, bless people who hate on them, love their enemies, right? So it's just funny how even this guy who really doesn't know anything about the Bible, and he calls out Chronic on Chronic's own behavior, so really kind of just exposes how very little Chronic himself knows about the Bible or even follows the Bible, which is funny.
Right? When you say you're religious, I'm assuming you're not.
Do not assume I came to bring peace. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. That's what Christ said.
So here Chronic totally takes a verse out of context and uses it to that's not what the verse means. The verse doesn't mean that you can go out and bash women. Like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. That's not what the verse means. So what does that verse mean? I don't know if I should even get into this, but that's not what the verse means. He's just taking it out of context. Let's just look it up. Do not assume I came to bring peace. It's probably somewhere in the Gospels, obviously. Where is it? Matthew 10. All right, Matthew 10. Let's just go real quick to that, and let's just see what that really means, just for sake of argument. Okay, so we can see, because it's funny how people, the Bible is so misquoted and so taken out of context, and people always use it for their own things, right? For their own, All right, do not think I have come to bring peace on the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. Let's see what this verse really means. What this verse really means is the whole earth is under Satan's usurpation. The heavenly king came to call some out from that usurpation. This certainly aroused Satan's opposition. He instigated the people under his usurpation to fight against the heavenly king's called ones. Thus, his coming did not bring peace, but a sword. There you go. So essentially, and I found this on a website called BibleRead.online. BibleRead.online, and you can find the footnotes which explain all the verses. So if you want to quote me on that, you can go look it up. It's right there. But again, the whole earth is under Satan's usurpation. The heavenly king came to call some out from that usurpation. This certainly aroused Satan's opposition. He instigated the people under his usurpation to fight against the heavenly king's called ones. Thus, his coming did not bring peace, but a sword. So essentially what that verse means is that Satan is trying to stop saved people get saved. He's trying to stop, he's trying to stir up and instigate people to attack Christians. So what Chronic is using that verse here is totally out of context, totally erroneous to what the verse actually means, and he's just using it for his personal little attack campaign against women, which is pretty low, pretty shameful. But anyway, let's go on.
Couple weeks before, a couple days before he was crucified. So I do agree, there's a lot of cut Christians out there, and you might have a lot of bad, or I would argue, wrong impressions of what the religion's point is. I think that the U.S. Christian church is extremely cucked, and
you have a wrong impression of what it really is because you don't know what the Bible is really saying, because probably you don't read it that much or you don't actually do much studying. But yet you quote it very loosely and very freely as if you have God's God's endorsement or something, and you totally don't. You're just, again, using, just like you're using the red pill for your personal gain, you're using the Bible now for your personal gain, for to you know, to back up your own little crap.
Talk about that at length.
Yeah, I'm not criticizing you for being religious.
I didn't get that vibe.
Yeah. The point I'm making is if your whole big thing is that you want to be ethically consistent and religious, then wouldn't it be completely out of line with your values to be like super rude to a chick who literally was nice to you?
Boom, there he goes. Now he gets it. Now Alex gets it. So now he totally calls him out. He basically just says, hey, you're not being consistent. You have religious values, but you're attacking women and you're acting like a total, douche. You're acting like a total hypocrite. You're not really Christian, dude. You're at least you're not exhibiting Christian values.
Well, if me roasting her, and let's be honest, was she nice to me because she thinks us green skins are famous below the belt? No. She's nice to me because I would say she wants to perform for the camera. I'm a loving girlfriend that's nice and sweet. Now, me telling her she's low value because she was not a virgin, it kind of reaffirms my belief and shows my audience I'm not going to just flip on a dime because some girl with a very sexualized outfit comes in front of me. And maybe there's a girl out there who's 14 and listening to this like, you know what? Wow, maybe.
So he's deflecting. He's not answering the question. You'll notice how he just deflects. He deflects. And so he's trying to make the point that, like, oh, he's actually righteous and right for calling out a phony, low-value girl, but he's totally sidestepping and jumping around the point that Alex was making, which is that you're being a hypocrite for not actually being consistent with the values that you hype up.
I should value my virginity. So for the, do I need to...
By the way, nowhere in the Bible does it necessarily say that people should just sit around and call out things that they don't like. That's not what the Bible's about. The Bible's about following God. The Bible's about following Christ. And you're not going to be able to do that in a very good way if you're just constantly insulting and cursing and bashing. And, like, even I got to be careful with making these videos because I am a active pursuing God Christian, to whatever extent. And even I a lot of times feel bad after I make a video sometimes, or like I'll got to check myself, but I'm not making money off this, so I don't have the incentive to put out that kind of content consistently, right? So for me, and plus not a lot of people, listen to my channel anyway, so it's like I don't have that burden of necessarily, like, feeling, and plus, like, I don't put out the vibe that people should be put down or people should be attacked, or that's not my vibe at all. Right, so I don't have that on my conscience, which is, I don't even think Chronic really even cares about God that much in order to even have that problem, but it just is what it is.
On the kid gloves to, I think you made a big mistake, but no, it's not up to me to forgive them. I can't forgive them for their sins. That's not me.
I mean,
you don't have to forgive them, but you don't have to talk about it either. You're sidestepping his whole point in that you're being a hypocrite by not practicing what you preach. You're sidestepping the whole point by him saying, hey, is it really Christian to attack people and call them names? Is it really a Christian to sit around and bash the opposite sex? No, the Bible says love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you. So you should pray for we should pray for these women. And, like, even I got to admit that I haven't said that much on my channel. We got to pray for the world, pray for the immorality, pray for, for the families, pray for the children, pray for these women who are supposed to be wives and good mothers who are just ruining themselves instead of just constantly attacking them or exposing them, whatever. I mean, I expose female nature. I barely talk that much about women as individuals, like, oh, this particular woman did that, etc. I'll expose the nature, or I'll expose the behavior as a whole, but you got to be careful, man. Like, we should be praying as Christians. We should be praying for this world to be more pure, so that God can have a way to gain people, so God can have a way to move on in his goals. But Satan is working through people to ruin families and to ruin children and to warp women and corrupt women, etc. And, like, we see that as red pill guys, but what's our reaction to it? Like, we should pray for it, and hopefully they can get saved. Hopefully they can, have a change of heart and have a turn in their behavior so they can become better mothers, et cetera, right? But he's making the point that, it's okay for me to just call it out, which is like, no, that's not biblical.
What kind of mental gymnastics you're doing with this very specific
Go back with the question.
Exactly. He's doing mental gymnastics. He's deflecting. He's doing this and that. And I'm not saying Chronic is stupid, but if you have Chronic he's obviously a clever guy, but if you have a big hole in your persona, if you have a big hole in your behavior or your value system, then people can see that, and you can get called out on it.
Said, don't you do unto others and do unto yourself? That's one verse.
What do you think Jesus would be like if you were just saying, I want to fill this chick up with my cum? Like that, or whatever. You call it something different, but you mean cum. Like, clearly that would not go against Christian values. Like, clearly that would be...
Exactly. Called him out. Straight up called him out. That's the home run. That's the home run hit right there. There you go. So Chronic shouldn't even bring up the Bible. He shouldn't even bring up Christian values, and he shouldn't even bring up... He's just the dude's just a straight up arrogant hypocrite, man. And it's just like, that's bad for the red pill, man. You got all these guys following you, and they don't see how much of a hypocrite you are. And that's my whole point, man. That's my whole point.
Like, okay, that's a big fucking no-no. And again,
wow, like he's pissing. He's using his righteous wrath to call sinners out. I don't know. Like, well,
yeah, you don't know. You have no idea what the Bible's about. Clearly, God doesn't. I mean, Jesus exposed people for sure, but he exposed them with the intent that they would have they would have a change and they would turn and repent from their behavior. He wasn't calling them out to condemn them in wrath. That's not what Jesus came for, and that's not what his followers and Christians should be doing. That's like the what's that church called from Florida or whatever, the ones who's like talking bad about the alphabet people. I forget what that church is called, but that just gives a bad name to Christians when you hatefully attack people that you believe are immoral or whatever. That just gives a bad name. So there's no escaping that. I mean, Alex got him. He got him in a headlock. He got him in the DDT. He bashed him off the high ropes. Whatever. Like, that's the winning blow. Alex got him, and I'm glad he did.
What Jesus say about John Anthony Lifestyle getting chlamydia 4 times? He doesn't care. So why?
Deflecting. He's deflecting, changing the goalposts, distracting away from himself. This is just bottom line basic behavior of a guy who's getting called out.
Are you suddenly caring about what Christ?
I don't care. Me and John are not religious at all. I don't.
Yeah. So like, if you're not religious, you should stop trying to argue religion. Because
No, bro. No. He's not trying to argue religion. He's calling you out on your hypocrisy for you bringing religion into it. He's a slippery, slimy dude. This Undead Chronic, man.
I'm not trying to argue religion.
Well, you're trying to argue from the perspective. Like, well, I heard this one verse.
Your intellectual consistency.
It's like the same thing where...
I'm trying to argue your intellectual consistency. Exactly. He's not consistent at all. End. Gotcha. Done.
Leftists will say, well, Jesus would let in all the immigrants into your country. Why don't you do that? Yeah, I don't believe in that. But you should but I'm hoping it will get you in your heartstrings and you change your position. No, I just don't listen to people that, well, I say,
it has nothing to do with getting you in your heartstrings. It's that you're not actually doing what Jesus did. You're throwing Jesus into the mix and taking him out of context and claiming that Jesus was this wrathful, hateful guy against things that were immoral, and that's not who Jesus was. You're misrepresenting God and Jesus in the Bible. Jesus and God in the Bible might have called out sin, but they were all for saving sinners. They didn't sit around and shame and bash sinners like you're doing. They were preaching the gospel so that sinners would repent and sinners would accept Jesus as their Savior. They weren't doing it so that the sinners would be condemned and they were just sending them to hell. No, Jesus came to save sinners from hell. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Well, what is the world? The world is full of sinners. It's full of immoral, bad people. That's what Jesus came for. He didn't come to condemn them. And I think if you read the very next verse, it says that Jesus didn't come to condemn the world, but to save the world. John 3:17. Let's go to that real quick. John chapter 3, verse 17. For God did not send the Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world might be saved through him. There you go, Undead Chronic. Your whole story is BS. Your whole persona, you don't know what you're talking about, taking things out of context. You have no idea what the Bible means. You're a complete arrogant hypocrite, and everybody can see it, and you're deflecting. God did not come to judge, but he came to save, right? That word condemn means judge. God didn't come to condemn or judge the world. That comes later. That comes after this world is over. If you actually read the Bible and you read the book of Revelation, there will be a judgment, but that's not what Jesus came for. Right now, Jesus came to save sinners, right? He who believes into him is not condemned, but he who does not believe into the Son has been condemned already, because he has not believed into the name of the only begotten Son. So really the only condemnation is that people, it's not for their behavior necessarily. It's because they won't believe in Jesus, because we're all sinners. We all have bad behavior. We start out that way, right? But the whole point of coming to Jesus and coming to Christ is so that we can be saved from that behavior. But it's also, the whole crux, people are only condemned or judged because they don't believe in Christ, not necessarily for their behavior, because Christ died for these people, right? So he's not representing Christ. He's a hypocrite. It's just sad.
I don't really think there's an honest conversation to have about what the best way to go about shaming and reintroducing.
You just don't. You don't do it. That's not in the Bible. I love Alex's facial expressions. He's like, what the hell are you talking about? He's like, you are such a hypocrite. It says it all. It says it all. And I'm not even a fan of Alex. I've critiqued his little deal, but it's hilarious. Like, he's like, what are you talking about?
The right kind of mindset into people who are already permanently damaged. It's just
my whole thing is
so people are permanently damaged, and then you just, well, first of all, people aren't permanently damaged. As long as there's breath, there's hope. People can be saved. People can repent. People can change. People can come to God at any stage, no matter how far gone you may think they are, and you just want to throw them away. Is that what Jesus did? Absolutely not. He not only did not throw them away, he died for them, right? And there was a guy on the cross who was dying, who was a thief and maybe a murderer too, I don't know, but as this guy was dying, literally on the cross, Christ saved him and said, today you will be with me in paradise. Go read the Gospels, man. Like, there's nobody who's so far gone that Christ can't save them. So every time Chronic talks, it's just like he just digs himself deeper and deeper.
I'm not a fan of shaming at all. I don't shame anybody on my channel. I don't believe in shaming, and that's why I was kind of challenged.
That's Chronic's whole MO. That's his whole modus operandi. That's his whole persona. Shaming. That's how he makes his money.
Here I was hoping you'd call me an incel. Damn.
Nah, man, I don't really insult people. Like, that's not my style. Nor do I see that as productive.
Which actually is true. I will say that about Alex. I've followed him over the years, off and on. Like I said, I've had my critiques, against him. But it is true that he doesn't talk crap. He doesn't shame people. He's not negative like that. That is a true statement, and he's really just kind of showing that he's better than Chronic, really, even though Chronic is claiming he's a fraud and all this and that, and he's just showing he has a better character than Chronic.
I think earlier you said we have a similar comedy style, so just off of you thinking insulting's not productive, I think that and your audience that thinks insulting's bad, we have very different comedy styles. But go on, Ed.
No, I actually don't think so. As a complete side note,
comedy styles? What does that even mean? What are you talking about?
I think actually in a weird alternative universe.
Oh, so it's all just comedy. So your whole channel is just comedy, Undead Chronic. It's all just for the laughs, man. Bullshit. That's you're deflecting. You're changing the goalpost. No, you're doing it because shock value gets shekels. Shock value gets followers. You know who your audience is. It's the red pill guys who are hurt, damaged, angry. That's your audience. That's why you do it. That's why, it's just comedy. That's his out. That's his excuse. No.
If you and I had similar values, and we probably would have, make each other laugh a lot. But
we would be part of the Vegas Hyman smashing crew.
All right, I'm going to end it there. I mean, he's totally deflecting, and He totally got called out, totally got owned. He just got blasted. But Alex isn't reveling in that. He's just. It's funny because Chronic thought he took J-Move apart like a surgeon, and actually Alex is operating some surgery right here. So J-Move, Undead Chronic tries to expose J-Move, and he did a decent job in exposing a lot of J-Move's inconsistencies and hypocrisies and lies and egregious behavior over the years. But here we have Alex, who's J-Move's partner to whatever extent, who's totally easily, seamlessly dismantling Undead Chronic's whole persona. And I don't even know if Undead Chronic realized it, if he even recognized that he totally got owned. He totally got owned here. I'm going to end it there. Let's listen a little more, so if there's anything else that comes out.
In an alternate universe.
Just a little more.
Well, clearly not for you, man.
Well, I mean, you get married and then you smash it and then you brag about it, right?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, those are the main points. The one other point I want to bring up, it was kind of my last point, is that you made the argument in the stream that I don't have personal values or ethics. So again, I'm kind of curious, what is that based on?
Was that you? I'm pretty sure I meant John. I don't think I...
You said we. You said we. So both of them.
Oh, they. Yeah. Yeah. If you have similar viewpoints to him, yeah. If you have, and you said you don't like doxing, so just off of that, we don't have a long conversation with you. But John said that it's a quote. My philosophical values change on situation. Well, then they're not values, are they?
The pot calling the kettle black. Okay, I've had enough of this. I'm gonna end it there, man. There you go. So, this is exactly what he's accusing John of doing. He himself is doing. Yeah, man, it is what it is. So Chronic replied again to me over here. Let's see this real quick. And then I'm going to end this. But he replied to me. So I make another post. So it's funny because it seems like he's kind of deconstructing. It's almost like Kanye West deconstructing on social media. It seems like Undead Chronic is kind of deconstruct, but I think he's just lashing out for attention, really. He says, why Undead Chronic won't show his face? And I said 3 hours ago, I tried to argue about the merits of your... Because in this video, he talks about something about the merits of his... Oh, you can't argue about the merits of my points. Like, yeah, Alex just did, and I have been trying to. So people out here are trying to do that, but I think this guy really has no consistency. He has no... there's really nothing genuine about him. He just says whatever he needs to say at any given time to get attention and views and shekels. So he says, I say, I tried to argue about the merits of your points coming from someone who doesn't follow them, but you ducked out and ran. I wonder why. And before heard her come on the show, I did last Friday, and you didn't put me in the show. You scurred, underdeveloped Chronic. He says, just label yourself as hater in the StreamYards, and you will get priority. I've yet to watch any of your videos. Doubt it, because I don't even mention my videos, so you know that I made videos about you, because I've tagged you in my videos. So I doubt that you've not watched any of my videos, but I think he's just saying that to, like, because he thinks that I want to get his attention or something, when really I'm just using him as an example of what guys in the Red Pill should not aspire to be, and Red Pill guys should not follow, right? I mean, a broken clock is right twice a day, so it's not that he doesn't ever make good points on Red Pill content. He exposes things that anybody can expose, things that, bad female behavior, simps, radical feminism, things that he talks about, which we've all been doing and knowing from day one. The difference is that he tries to monetize it, right? So it's not that, I disagree with anything he says when he's talking bad about certain female behavior. I think he's right on a lot of his points, but again, it's his whole persona, it's the inconsistencies, it's the hypocrisy, and then he does it all for followers. And so he's got a lot of young men, 19, 17, 16, 20, 21, 22 year old men who are following him, young men who are following him, and thinking that this type of behavior is okay, and that's going to cause a lot of problems in their lives, because this is not an example of a guy with a quality character. Now, yes, there is some burden of responsibility on them to pick better examples, but if you're propping yourself up as like this amazing red pill cool guy, who, you know, or whatever, however he's doing it, like his whole bravado, arrogant attitude, you know, and he'll say, you know, to that he'll say something like, oh, you know, you don't have to listen to me. See, he's always deflecting, but fact is he's propping himself up like he's this really clever, smart guy, you know, in the red pill, and in reality he's just a shit talker. It's just funny. So anyway, he knows that I made videos about him, so now he's trying to, like, you know, low-key insult me, like, oh, I didn't watch any of your videos, like, you care about me but I don't care about you. And nah, dude, you've been running. But it doesn't matter. I'm just calling a spade. I'm just calling you out, that's all. So I say, I'm not hating on you, Underdeveloped Chronic, just pointing out your hypocrisy. We all know you're in this for the shekels. And then I say, hey, Underdeveloped Chronic, you know cannabis increases estrogen, right? What are your thoughts on that? Anyway, just some little funny shit. He won't answer. He's running. He doesn't. Anyway, man, it's probably not going to stop him. I'm not out to stop him. It is what it is. If there's a market for assholes, if there's a market for arrogant guys who bash women all day long, then it is what it is, and it's just funny to me. But I'm gonna call it out, and just like I've called out other guys, and that's not what my show's even about. It's not about calling. I'm, you know, if anything, it's just about telling the truth of the red pill, and sometimes that means you got to talk about it. You got to expose and talk about people who are in the community who are not on the level. So anyway, it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad that so many guys follow him in this way. It's sad that so many young guys are probably filled with hate, and they're not going to... But I guess, you know, in a sense, yeah, they are choosing to follow this guy, and I hope that will be better guys that come out and say, hey, you know what, this, you know, it's not the, you know, we can be red pilled, and it's not the right way to go, being red pilled, but also insulting and attacking, and I mean, Alex did a good job of just calling him out and say, hey, you know, why are you constantly bashing everything? Is that what Jesus did? And no, it's not. You know, Jesus was loving, and he came to save people, and he came to help people. He wasn't trying to, you know, insult them and point the finger. And for people to think that is crazy. It's like you're misunderstanding the Bible. Like, you need to do some more studying, because that's not what... He didn't come to condemn the world. It says right here in John chapter 3:17, he did not come to judge or condemn the world, but to save the world, that the world might be saved through him. So, and that's true. It's consistent if you read the whole messages in the Gospels. That's what he did. He came to see, died for the world. That's what he came to save them. So anyway, man, I just hope there's some more guys who can come out and be better examples. And it's like, yeah, you're bitter, whether you're not, you're an incel. You probably are, because it's like, why are you so bitter? But you know what I mean? It's like, that's not the point. The point is that you're exuding toxicity, you're exuding negativity, and these people are eating it. You know, they're taking it in mentally and emotionally, and that's not helping them get through their red pill rage. That's not helping them get through their disappointment or their depression, or it's not helping them. You know, I can't even listen to like 2 or 3 of his videos because it's so toxic. It's so immature. It's like, it's not enlightening to me. It doesn't help me with my issues. You know, it doesn't help me with anything with regards to the red pill. It doesn't help me feel better about my life. It doesn't bring anything positive or constructive into my life. It's just negative, downer, dissing, insulting kind of content. And it's like, we need to be better than that in the red pill. We need to do better than that. So whether or not he listens to my videos, it's not even my point. I don't care. Like, he's not going to change. I never expected him to change. I'm just here to call a spade a spade. So I think this is it. I think I'm going to be done with this, hopefully, and move on. But I'm going to unsubscribe from Chronic, because I actually have only been subscribed. Well, I think I've subscribed to him before, but I've actually put him on a notification priority or whatever recently because of his calling out J-Molv. And yeah, that's an easy win. Calling out J-Molv is a layup. It's an easy win. J-Move is an obvious fraud, but I don't think Chronic would do very well against Rollo Tomasi. I don't, in a debate. I don't think Chronic would do very well against Richard Cooper in a debate. I think Donovan Sharp would rip Rollo. I think Donovan Sharp would rip Undead Chronic to shreds in a debate. Donovan Sharp is smart as a whip, and he's got some inconsistencies, but he would still rip up Undead Chronic. Actually, they might agree on a lot anyways. I don't even know. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully this is my last shit with Undead Chronic. I'm going to move on and unsubscribe and just get to the positive shit. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I appreciate y'all listening. It's been Jay Lee of Northwest Podcast. Peace.